Okay, so we'll hear from Leah Bassel from the University of Leicester, Associate Professor in Sociology.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'm going to be really quick because people are raring to speak, and that's exactly as it should be. And especially because what I want to talk to you about today is some thinking and writing I've been doing about the politics of listening. And I think that really is a running theme through our conversation today. First of all, I also want to thank Ambrose for inviting me. Ambrose did this amazingly Ambrose thing where he invited me and then I sort of hesitated and he sort of, wouldn't you? And then he kind of flashed the smile and did the whole charm thing. And finally, of course, my defenses had completely crumbled. And I said, okay, Ambrose, I'm going to do it. And the most amazing thing is that he did that all by email. So thank you for that, Ambrose. So what I'd rather do than just talk on and on about the thing I planned to say is just reflect briefly on the wonderful things the people who've spoken before me have said and just add an example of my own that I think demonstrates some of the potential of a politics of listening, and that's the kind of thing we've started doing here today. What is it when we think about listening as a political practice? And just very briefly, reflecting on what each of you have said, in what you said, Arnab, I was so struck by so many things, and everything everyone has said was so moving, but especially when you talked about your experiences and about this possibility of people listening to the experiences of diverse employees. What would that open up to us? What would that bring? And what that requires then is that we're actually willing to change roles of speaking and listening. And the thing that requires, first of all, is that we stop talking. So there's a really important set of preconditions before we're even doing this thing called listening as a kind of a political practice. And Sarah, I mean, it's so brilliant. Again, all these people are amazing, and I feel very humble speaking after you, all of you. All of these amazing things you spoke about, and I think there's so much more we can add, especially about the things that we see in other contexts and the things we need to look at more closely by comparison when we look at our own, whether that's Leicester or whether that's the UK as a whole. I really appreciated that you called out Donald Trump. I'm from Canada, and we're living now in mortal dread of what's happening south of the border when I speak to my parents. But I think when we think about the sorts of things that Trump is doing, we have very similar things happening here around hostile environment policies. Similar things happening in our universities when we working in universities have to monitor our students' attendance because of reasons of immigration control. And the ways in which in my daughter's school, I'm boycotting the school census because data is being shared with the Home Office to identify people who are potentially deportable. So these are the kinds of things we have to be looking across and then calling out in our own spaces. And from your example as well, Matthew, which is wonderful, and I've had the pleasure of working with your center in my teaching already, and it's a wonderful organization. And what you were talking about in Australia with same-sex marriage, which is absolutely a victory, but at the same time, much like in my own country, in Canada, Australia recognizes the humanity of some people while dehumanizing and criminalizing others. In the very same breath, people on Manus Island are being brutalized. There are terrible, terrible violations in the lives of asylum seekers. So it's how do we make these connections so we recognize these really great progress that have been made, but that we speak across and we don't reproduce this kind of us and them logic. Some people are okay now, but maybe others are still absolutely not in this situation. And finally, Hesed, it's so moving. And for me this was just so powerful because it was the power of your story and the way you enabled us to imagine experiencing the world as you do and thinking about people in their multiple dimensions and not just in the bit of their lives that suits our narrative. And again, that's something I've had the opportunity to think about a lot when thinking about the politics of listening, where in so many cases, people in different situations, whether it's the 2011 riots in this country, whether it's issues around Muslim women's rights in my own country, in Canada, or in other countries, where people will only hear, dominant groups will only hear that little bit of your story that fits with their own narrative. I thought it was so powerful when I was working with Somali refugee women in Canada, when one woman I spoke to said to me, talking about the issue, the ever-present issue of female genital mutilation, saying to me, I wish people would stop trying to save me. They only listen when you bash your culture. So what does that tell us about the possibility of being recognized in all your dimensions and the possibility of a politics of listening that isn't just about fitting into these dominant narratives, but that's about a sort of political equality where people can maybe be heard on their own terms, rather than having to fit into these structures that are existing and that are set by powerful people. Last thing I want to say is to share a positive example with you from my own country, from Canada, and it's not to give you the usual multicultural success story, which maybe some people are hinting at is a problem in Leicester. I wouldn't presume to say this is your city, and you all have passion and you care about your city. That comes across so strongly tonight. But in this example from Canada, what I find so interesting is it involves a form of solidarity, and we've been talking about allies and solidarity, between two relatively powerless groups of people, but where they've been willing to step outside of those dominant narratives and to challenge the terms of debate, to challenge that story of Canada as this multicultural success story. And to give you the example, this has been a really important alliance between some migrant justice groups in Canada and some Indigenous groups, where these migrant justice activists who are part of the group No One Is Illegal have challenged that whole story of we're just going to fit into Canada and become model minorities and succeed on these terms. And they've changed actually even the kinds of slogans and political campaigns they make around migrant justice because they've undertaken a politics of listening, because they've worked with Indigenous allies to listen to what they say about Canada, about sovereignty, about land. And they've recognized that as migrant justice activists, if they call for open borders, which is what many No One Is Illegal groups do, if they say open borders, no nation, that actually is at 180 degrees to claims for Indigenous sovereignty. That actually completely contradicts Indigenous understandings of land and nationhood and belonging, which is not about grabbing land and owning it the way we might think of in many kind of Western conceptions of putting a stake in the ground, but about spirituality and stewardship and relationship with the land. So these migrant justice activists have done something really important. They've stopped talking, they've listened, they've acted with humility but stuck around to be allies, and they've revised their entire program of migrant justice. So now, for example, instead of saying no borders, no nation, they've shifted their slogan because of that politics of listening, because of the political equality they're trying to practice in their politics. And instead, they say things like, no one is illegal, Canada is illegal. They're naming the problem of a colonial state. They're naming a problem not just of their own piece of the pie of border control, they're situating that in this broader context of a nation that's founded on colonial genocide. And they're thinking it through. They're thinking, what do we ask for that fits with what Indigenous sovereignty and Indigenous people are claiming? What does it mean if we actually listen, if we actually revise the way we are together, the way we act together, the way we live together, and what new kind of society can that reveal? So I wanted to just share that example with you to add to all the great things everyone else has been saying. And I am now going to follow through on the listening thing. I'm going to stop talking and back over to all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I've just been given the opportunity to say a few words. My name is Marsha Ramrick, and I work at BBC Radio Leicester. I'm the new diversity lead there, and just want to follow on directly, actually, from what you've just said. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Because you talked about listening, and one of the things that we really know that we've been getting wrong, not only at BBC Radio Leicester, but at the BBC generally. In fact, I've just come from a week of events in London about diversity, how we need to be serving our audiences better, how we need to really understand and reflect diversity and be inclusive in what we're doing on air. Well, really, in Leicester, we know that we haven't been doing that properly, and it's one of the reasons why I've come on. So what we want to make sure we're doing is listening to all the diversity of communities and be inclusive in what we're doing, and reflecting your stories and sharing them. And we're looking at how we do that differently. Clearly, I know I need to get out and meet as many people. As one of the reasons why I'm here is to try to, I want everyone's name, address, number, email, because I need to meet you, I need to talk to you, I need you to talk to me, I need to listen and hear the stories that you want to have told, so that we are reflecting, because the BBC is for you, it's for all of us, it's about reflecting your lives on air, and through using us as a medium to reflect back and share those stories as much as we possibly can, so this work can be done. And that is what we're here for. So, a bit of a pitch, please come find me, give me your name, give me your email, give me your phone number, because I really do want this to actually, something to happen, and it can really happen if we make that contact tonight.
Yeah, I'd just like to sum up from what I've heard tonight. It seems that you're changing the word multicultural to diverse, which I quite like that. So multicultural seems to be lots of cultures living separately, which is a more American term, I think. So we've got to be more diverse to come together. The idea is to bring things together. I like looking at words. I study words. I really like to get into them. You know, I don't like the dictionary's definition. I like to find my own. And this word liberal, I think there's a problem with this word liberal. I think in the English language it used to mean reasonable and moderate, but I think it's changed now. It seems to mean more the American term now, which is anything goes, no rules, do what you like. And that's a problem. That term is a problem. That's maybe what got Trump elected as well, because of that. So it's a different definition, almost the opposite of its true definition, which is reasonable and moderate. That's what liberal means. So it comes down to, I see it, the problem of trust and equality. Well, I've looked at the word trust, and I find it to be a very negative word, not a positive word. Because we're trusting people, we shouldn't be trusted. And we're encouraged to do that. Yeah? So there is an old proverb that says, trust no one and love everyone. Which is it. What it means basically is, if I trust a few people here, and I don't trust the others, I'm not practicing equality, am I? Because I've either got to trust all of you, or trust none of you. Now, I'm sure we've all got keys in our pockets. The truth is, you might say, oh, I don't trust me, I trust. The truth is, we've all got keys in our pockets. We don't trust anyone, truthfully. We don't trust anyone. And that's the way it should be. But we're told to trust some people and not others. That's not equality. We're not practicing equality if we don't do that. So it starts with trust, understanding trust as negative. Yeah? We should be loving everyone. Now this comes down to what the lady was saying there about spirituality. This is a spiritual way of looking at it more. You know? And this should be taught in schools. Spirituality should be taught in schools. That's where it begins. It's going to change with the children, not with us. Diversity is going to come from them, it's going to come from us. We've got fixed ways, they're not going to change. You know what we like. So, we've got our biases. That's another word. The narrative, we should have a narrative on bias, on certain words, trust, and these are all spiritual. It's more of a spiritual way of looking at it. And that's got to be taught in the schools, and I think that's my contribution to tonight. Now, we've really got to push for spirituality to be taught in schools. Spirituality is not religion. It's the same in all religions. And that's what should be taught. That comes down to what you said about schools, religious schools. There shouldn't be religious schools. We should be learning spirituality.
Thank you very much. I'm picking up from what you said. What we would like is, for diversity and the city to be a regular component of the Leicester Human Rights Arts and Film Festival. But for that to happen, that has got to come from you. If you support the idea, if you believe that we need a space like this where we look at what diversity means for the city of Leicester, this can become a regular part of the festival. This is what the Leicester Human Rights Arts and Film Festival can guarantee. But in doing that, again, the only way we can have something like this is if it is supported. The support that I am thinking of is we've got feedback forms. It would be good if you could share views that you have on the feedback forms, and also write about the festival, talk about what is happening here today, and if you have any reflections, share them with us as well. And if we can work together, let us know as well. That is, and thank you very much.
If you have had an opportunity to write something down in those little forms, I noticed some people putting them in their bags. Unfortunately, you're unlikely to contact us to return the forms, but if you write something up on those forms now, that would be really helpful to us, to tell us what you've got from this event, and maybe what could be done differently here to make this work.
Can I just say two things quickly?
Yeah, we have a few minutes. Yes,
I
please.
think it's great, really excellent speakers, and some of what's been said has been fantastic. I wonder, just slightly, like if Leicester University is putting its name there, why are we in a hall? Who is this for? If it's for education of the wider community, where are the business people? Who are asked? Where's the, where are the employers and those people you're trying to change or get involved? How many of them have been asked? Why are we in a hall that can only fit 35 people? I mean, I don't want to be negative because I think it's really good and maybe this is the spark of something. But it just feels like it's missed a trick because the speakers are so good. You probably put so much effort in, amazing people talking. It just seems like, can more people have heard about it or hear it? It just seems it's like priceless stuff that it's only a small amount of people hearing it. That's my first thing. So maybe next time Leicester University donates a hall or something. And that woman was right. You can't hear people. You should have mics. You should have proper, bigger space. And that was my first thing. And the second thing is solutions. I think another time if you do it, have more time for solutions. Because I'm going to leave now and, maybe others will leave and we could help in some way, but we're not being presented with a way of helping. Well, that's down to whatever. That woman from the BBC, maybe, have a Facebook page about this or something so we can make contact with each other, not just an Eventbrite thing. But one solution I have, anyway, it's a little thing I'm working on, and maybe people could get involved in that. I've just left it, but I've set it up. It was an idea called Art Space Leicester, which is a building in the city centre that appeals to the different communities across the different art sectors, the creative sectors, so music, spoken word, whatever. Because I feel that Leicester is ghettoised. I've lived in different parts. It's the white working class, the white middle class. And what Leicester needs is a place, at least with the creative community, that is relevant to the different communities to come together and meet each other. And when they meet each other, things can happen. That project will probably take 5-10 years, but we've had a lot of talking with people in the different communities, from spoken word, music, dance, whatever. We've had a certain amount of meetings, and they've all said they feel isolated, they need nurturing, and it's so crazy that we've got all these really talented people that are just missing each other. So 2 solutions are coming out. One is to create a really big information hub through social media and where we can find out what's happening. That's the first thing. Great Central might get involved and whatever. And the other thing is to have a massive creative meetup once a month, like Birmingham has it, like Leicester have it, like the LCB canteen, but it's for creatives. It's only one part of our communities, but it's the way that the creative community, or anyone that's interested, can get to meet, so you know where to go. So I think meeting each other and creating more social situations where we can meet is really important. So if you want to support that project as well, that would be great. I want to say that. What's that? Well, all it exists at the moment is a Facebook page, Art Space Leicester. That's all it is. It has a group, and it has about 100 supporters, but it's just at the very early stage. There's a lot of support from Sen Van, blah blah. It just needs a group. It needs people with project management skills. But if you want to support it, that's where the information will be. Yeah, Art Space Leicester.
On the university front, DICE actually holds a lot of much larger events than this at the university for the public. So the reason why we're cooperating with Ambrose here is that he wants an event here in the community, and I think that's a perfectly good idea too. So we don't just run very small events like this, we run very large events with national speakers at the university with very large audiences. So this is just one of a variety of things that we do. So DICE isn't just about very small events like this, although I think these have a place and give people an opportunity to talk at some length about things that they're really concerned about. And so I think both kinds of events can and do work properly.
And also, this is the third event that Civic Leicester, DICE and CHEC have co-organized. The first event was held at the Leicester Equalities Centre, opposite the St. Townsend Theatre. The second was held at the University of Leicester. The third was held here because of the significance of Narborough Road and also how that speaks to the issues that we are talking about tonight. The questions that you ask about how do we reach more audiences, those are questions that all event organizers are asking. When you start organizing your own events, you will find exactly the same question.
I do organise a lot of events, and I wouldn't have one here.
Well,
but no, it's not. It's not a criticism. It's marvellous what you've done. I don't want to take away because it is really good. It's just that I feel it's just because it is so good. It would have been lovely if more people, could literally fit in the hall, can hear, but it has a bigger audience. So that's really.
Audiences, the events that we organize are open to all. You heard about them. You could have shared them with your contacts.
Yeah.
We rely on people media.
I suppose I'm saying physically you can only fit about 35 people in this hall, and it just seems a shame because you're almost preaching to the converted. It would be really interesting if more could fit in.
We could have had a bigger hall, and the photo of us attendant.
That's true.
That wouldn't have been a good
It's
use.
just my points.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
I think the thing was, he did say, John said, it's John, isn't it?
Yeah.
It said that they're trying to put it in the community. But the
Yeah.
thing is, from the community as coming, I don't see, I think there's people that have got a keen interest in this debate.
Yeah.
So they're failing even to get to the community.
Well,
And
I
maybe that's
think you
something
need to
have
use
think
social
about.
media more.
Because when we talk about communities,
It hasn't. It is very difficult getting information.
most of us are academics or got an interest or work in this children.
Seems quite coming to an end there.
I would suggest that you do speak to the converted for long enough that it becomes a strong enough move, because the business communities and others with other interests will take over unless this group is actually quite strong in keeping it very basic, very rooted. Like you mentioned spirituality, you mentioned that to a business person, they'll say, yeah, right.
No, not necessarily.
Well, I mean, in general,
Well, I don't know, you're generalising a lot. I know a lot of great business people who are very spiritual who aren't necessarily what you think they are again.
No, I was generalising. I mean, as a group, it should be strong enough to be able to then build on, rather than saying you want lots of people.
But I think, I'd like to say that I think Ambrose has made a really good start. I want to thank him for inviting me, because I've got to say, I didn't know about the Diversity Human Rights Festival in Leicester. And it's a great, there's something really special going on here. I'm really glad I came here tonight, and I think through the networks we've probably developed tonight, we'll be able to do a lot more. So I think there is a spark. I think you've started something here, and I'm really glad you have. So thank you very much.
Right, as we are coming to the end position as a chair and share with you a story. And this is a story with my nephew and my sister. So my sister lives in Cyprus, which is where I'm from as well, and she's a teacher. And she teaches at this school where is categorized as one of the schools in Cyprus that has a large percentage of students who are recent arrivals from diverse backgrounds, from lots of different countries. And in her classes, there is a clear division between the Cypriot students and the students, the recent arrivals, who sometimes don't speak Greek, or they know very little Greek, or very little English for that matter. So she's been thinking ways of trying to bring the students together, to interact a little bit more, to learn more about each other. And they've been trying to do that through music, but not as effectively at times. So she was discussing this with her 5-year-old son. And she asked him, what shall I do to help my students? And my nephew told her, Mom, you should just tell them, children, you are going to play together, and that's it. And this is through the eyes of a 5-year-old who only sees other children as just other children, that the only thing they share is playing. And that's it. When kids grow a little bit older, the ideas they get, I don't think they necessarily create these ideas about differences or different backgrounds themselves. They hear this stuff from others. But through the eyes of a 5-year-old, what's important is just getting along and playing, and that's it. So with that, with the words of a 5-year-old, I think it's appropriate to end this. Thank you all for
And please also, let's thank the librarian for making this space available for us.